listening to the sweet sounds of the After Movie Diner, which turned 10 years old in 2021. Insert suitable sounds of shock and awe now. If you enjoy the show and have pursued the recommended treatment from your medical providers, why not support the show on Patreon over at patreon.com/After Movie Diner. You can also donate to the show directly at aftermoviediner.com. Rate and review the show wherever podcasts are found and rating and reviewing is possible. Even a 1-star review provides useful insights on exactly the sort of petty-minded and wretched individual who negatively reviews free entertainment they do not need to be consuming. And now, try to contain your outrage and yawns. Here is your host, John Cross.
Hello, thank you, Leanna. That's right, I am John Cross, and I'm coming to you still alive from under a mound of discarded hams. Our guest this week, David Frazer, has been part of independent folky thrash metal and musicians with large beards royalty since the age of 8, when he formed his first glam metal six-piece with 5 other children, weirdly all called Heimlich, Poisoned Octopus Inc. They wrote, recorded, and tried to release their first long player in the summer of 1990, Viking Bloodhedge, a concept album in 8 parts about the fact that the bullies at school were always stealing their socks and filling them with pudding. Sadly, the tape cassette was confiscated by the school nurse, a Miss Perringhume Bursting of Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, who used the noisy music to drown out the sounds of her flamboyant lovemaking with a town official as part of an elaborate ruse to get a parking spot named after her at the drugstore. It didn't work. When Poisoned Octopus Inc. broke up the following August, Dave moved to Nebraska and briefly toured with a one-eyed angry barn monkey cover band called Punish My Primate. Spent some time in Oregon being the front man for the now infamous symphonic trio Deathface, played bass in Saratoga for the Horned Murder Fairies for a spell before returning to Wisconsin and starting up Goat Hemorrhage, which would go on to win Best Noise at the Bluff Siding Talent Show and Satanic Cult Convention, where everyone mostly just commented on what lovely robes everyone had while casually discussing 15th century feudal land disputes and getting blind drunk on flagons of vodka and wolf spit. While Goat Hemorrhage garnered some quite average reviews and one small accolade when Bobby Blitz mistook them for goat miscarriage and booked them on a 74-town tour, and in a midnight game of rummy out the back of a World of Warcraft store somehow gave them his car, his underpants and his wig, Dave still has them in his pantry, they never garnered the sort of response that he was looking for, and so after getting together with renowned screamer and occasional torturer of pigeons, Libby Schetz, they formed, disbanded and reformed again the punk hair metal quartet Mr. Rogers' Puppet Warriors. Sadly, that band had to be forgotten when Libby died horribly in a vat of his own hot fluids in 1998 in front of a priest and while trying to give a small-time zoologist an artificial inseminator of boars the direction to the sperm bank. After moving to Milwaukee, semi-curious drummer Erd Klughammer gave him some used pentangles and a novelty beer helmet for writing most of the lyrics for Monster Vassal's comeback album, Bladeocalypse. David then decided to put music away for a moment. He settled down, got a job, found a wife, bought a house, and befriended a ridiculously hobo-bearded gentleman who hosts a very little heard of podcast. But wait, let me, in the past, take up my own story now. He and I met back at a trade show. When was that? About 3 years ago now?
Yeah.
4 years ago now?
Feels like forever ago.
So Dave and I met in 2018 at a trade show that my company runs. And normally at that trade show, I am just fairly miserable, head down. I don't want to talk to anyone. To anyone. I'm the Grinch of the group. And I don't know what it was the first conversation, but somewhere along the line, we were just like, oh, right, we're going to be best pals now forever.
Yeah.
Because we just kind of started talking movies and music and all that good shit. And we didn't stop talking for 4 days.
Yeah, it was one of the more just kismet is the only way I can describe it. Like we met and it was just like, wow, we couldn't come up with enough things to talk about. There was just constant conversation. It was great.
Yeah. It was awesome as well because it was the year that my company decided to do this big what was it? It was just like a kind of area for their key buyers or key attendees or whatever. And no one came up there. We did nothing. for 4 days. So it was wonderful. And then, of course, my company, all my colleagues in my company did the usual childish thing of being like, oh, look, John's having a bromance and shit like that. And that made me want to punch each of them in the neck. They were jealous. Fuck them. Yeah. But it was great. And then subsequently, we hung out a couple of times in New York. And then last year, during COVID, I started Friday night movie nights. And so along the line, you and your wife, Bryn, jumped on and joined us for a whole series of Friday night movie nights, which has led to this very podcast.
We've got so much history. I didn't realize there'd be such a narrative. But you're right. Yeah, it's.
I love the narrative. I'm all about the narrative. This show has morphed over the years from being primarily about movies to being more about like the way movies connect people and the way podcasting connects people and the way that sharing creativity connects people. Because that is a narrative I'd much rather be telling than just talking about. There's 101 podcasts out there that are going to be talking just about movies. And I much prefer the idea that over the last 10 years that I've been doing this, that there is a story of the people I've met and the things I've discovered and the places it's taken me, and the people that I've spoken to as well. And the fact that it's inspired other people to start their own shows or do their own music or do their own whatever. I like that. To me is what it's about. If the internet is good for anything, that's what it's good for. And that is the perfect segue, because I recently discovered that you yourself, sir, I already knew you were a musician, but you yourself have now got an album coming out that you have top to bottom written, recorded, and produced. Is that correct, sir?
That's right. Yeah. I wrote it all, when we were all bored during early COVID. I was just like, I had this, it kind of like when I was a teenager and I first started getting into metal, I was obsessed with two bands right off the bat, Hatebreed and Manowar. For some reason, I liked those two very different bands. And I just, from like age 16, I was like, man, what if they were merged? And I've always thought about it over time. Like it's kind of evolved. I want to get more folk metal influence in there. And I'm just like, I had this idea for this project and I'm just like, hey, let's just do it. I've got time. So I learned all that needed to be done to write it in Guitar Pro. And then I just recruited session musicians, some really, really amazingly talented people to do it and lay down the vocals myself, it's been about 10 years since I did it. So I had to get my chops back. But it was an adventure. A lot of fun to put together and to hopefully share and have some people hear it.
So I've not really heard of someone doing that before, which is awesome. And I'd never really thought about doing it, but getting session musicians to sort of realize a style or a genre or a type of thing you wanted to do. Yeah. Do you play any of the instruments on the album?
No, I don't play any on the album. Okay. I kind of dabble in all the instruments. I wrote it all myself. I have a guitar, but I'm not good enough at it to do that. I felt like I wanted to do more than my abilities allowed me. So I was like, I'm just going to write what I feel is going to sound good or what I want the vision to be musically. And then we'll figure out how it gets created later. And I was really fortunate to have, people that I knew that I could connect with. I worked with Brian Koenig, who's the current guitarist of Lords of the Tridents. I used to play with back in the early 2000s. I used to play in bands with him, but back when he was in a different band called Luna Mortis. So I knew him, and then the last time I recorded an album back in my 20s, the engineer that I worked with I was like, I don't know anyone in the music industry. I'll just call him up and be like, hey, you still doing stuff? And lo and behold, he'd been doing engineering this whole time and he'd done a lot of he did Sunless's latest album. He did a album from a band called Obsolete, like really highly regarded in kind of the metal underground scene albums. I was just like, wow, you're still doing this and you'll produce mine as well. He hooked me up with the drummer, Jason Hurd, who plays for Ghostpath, which is like an enormously huge band in Europe. By metal standards, obviously. And then he laid down bass. It was just like, it was great to just work with like real musicians and real artists and just experience how great it could be. Like compared to like working with like contractors, like right now I'm getting shit done on my house. Like experts in one area, like you expect them to all kind of be like, you know, kind of jealous about their abilities. Like when I started working with like, you know, these incredibly talented musicians, I expected them to be like, ho hum, whatever, like kind of be like shitty about it, but they were so supportive and great. Like it was great to work with them from top to bottom. So it made the whole experience really, really fun. And now I don't know if I'll ever go back to playing in a band where I have to recruit like friends. I'll just like, I want to do it again. I'll just get people to play in it because it's better creatively and the experience was great.
So it's this fantastic combination of sort of you knew a few people and then kind of other people came on top of that. And then how involved? So this friend of yours was producing stuff. What was your sort of involvement? Were you there with him? Like, did you go to the studio and whatever, or did he send you files back and forth, or how did that work?
Yeah, so I went to the studio to do vocals. So I do all the vocals on the album. And like in between that time, like I had the drums laid down first, like in, I want to say like August of 2021. Then the guitars came in like, you know, October or something like that. And then I did the vocals in like late October. So like by the time I came in, all the other stuff had been recorded. I was communicating with the musicians kind of throughout. Like they'd send me a recording of, you know, basically what I did. And I mentioned Guitar Pro. I wrote all the tracks in a software program that I was able to like produce like these MIDI versions of, and you know, they could just listen to it and they just played, you know, their versions of what I wrote, which is pretty much the same as what I wrote. So that really helped. I didn't have to communicate with them like, hey, play this here. I could refer to
so it spits out like tab or guitar chords or
not only tabs, but audio files as well. So like,
nice. Okay.
They didn't have to do anything in terms of like, you know, writing their own stuff. Like it was all in tabs. It was all, they could hear exactly what I could go, okay, in measure 48, you missed this triplet, or, you know, go back and palm mute this instead of playing it open on measures 49 through 60 or whatever. So like that made it really easy to work remotely with all these folks. And then they would just record it in their own studios. I think Jason, the drummer, Jason went into the studio with Adam, my engineer, and did his stuff. Then Brian did his stuff in his own studio with Brian, the guitarist. And then Adam did his, you know, was the engineer. So he just did it in the studio. But we were in constant communication about, you know, how things sound, and they would check things with me. And then Adam basically had like a raw mix on it when I went in. And then over the course of the 2 days in the studio, we just kind of worked on fine tuning it and then just communicating over email, really. It was
that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. It was a really 21st century experience. Like I imagine like how impossible it would be to do a remote band like this, like even 10, 15 years ago. But it was pretty seamless.
Yeah, so it's funny because whenever I speak to people who have done an album like yourself, or people who play who aren't me, I'm always constantly impressed by like the terminology they use and how professional the quality of their stuff sounds. I've been playing I've been playing piano since I was 4. I've been playing guitar since I was 12. Mm-hmm. And I've been writing songs earnestly since I was about 16. Mm-hmm. And I have none of the knowledge that anyone else has, seemingly, because they you know, they'll say a bit of jargon. Like I've never been in a recording studio to record my stuff. Okay. Like I do all my stuff at home. I do it all on GarageBand. And the way that I collaborate right now is I literally put out on Facebook about 3 years ago, hey, who wants to join me on an album? And a bunch of my other sort of amateur musician friends and some pro musician friends kind of went, sure, we'll throw you a track or two. And it just takes time. I send out demo versions. They send me back tracks. I remix and make a kind of second draft. Then I send that out. Then, you know, we kind of go back and forth like that. And it's all done on GarageBand. I know, even though I've been doing this now for years digitally, I know nothing more about mixing than I knew 5 years ago. I apparently don't learn anything. The only thing that I think I've got better at is songwriting. But outside of that, just because you work the muscle, right? You just do it enough and you kind of get slightly better at it. Right. Or your influences change, or you start to realize what your own kind of influence, not your own, but your own voices outside of your influences, I guess. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know. but it already sounds like I've listened to one track from your album, and it's fantastic. I loved it.
Thank you.
I like it because it's such a great crash of genres. There's about 3 or 4 different genres going on in there. Mm-hmm. And I know metal only from, I had a friend of mine at university, and I'm still very, very close with the 3 lads I lived with at university, and we all had completely eclectic tastes, but there was always like commonalities there.
Yeah.
And I had this great friend of mine, Matt Street, who was completely, he could go as far into like death metal and like insane German metal or whatever, black metal, whatever you want to call it, whatever the most extreme metal is. Mm-hmm. But he also liked everything right back to when Buddy Holly first plugged in his guitar and kind of everything in between, right? He had a real, he loved guitar music, whatever the kind of expression of that was. So we connected obviously on, blues and rock and roll and funk and punk and all that stuff that I love. Yeah. And then once he started getting into like the Rammstein kind of, or Manowar, any of that stuff at that end, I kind of was like, I appreciate it, Matt, but I can't go there with you. It was that big. But what I loved about your track is that it has such a nice mix of genres in it. But I also think, and I don't mean this as a negative, I mean this as a positive, and I think knowing you now that it is a positive, it has such a great sense of humor, which I think you intend it to have, right? So talk to me about being a metal fan, but also being like a comedy fan, and how those two things play into each other, because just you rattling off band names earlier, I'm like, oh, these are fucking great band names. But they're great band names because they're also hilarious. Yeah. Like Ghost Path sounds like a band name I would just make up for a sketch. But I love it. Yeah. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, being a metal fan for my whole life is really, you have to have a sense of humor, because like there's this, you kind of referenced it, there's a side of metal that takes itself way too seriously. And in general, it's just a goofy genre. Like, it's like so many of the themes are just goofy, like the whole Satanism thing, or the whole like, in my case, kind of the like veneration of battle, like that type of thing. Like you get, like I mentioned, Manowar, but there's whole genres that are based on like, retelling of Viking sagas and things like that.
I was thinking Viking helmets and enormous beards and big weaponry and people like screaming. Yeah, that's what
there's this like very serious side of it. And I always liked, kind of the bands that didn't take themselves so seriously. Like, I think it's serious music, but like, I want it to be like, have kind of the tongue-in-cheek feel to it. So like what I've done with this album is I've kind of spun that like traditional metal, like battle narrative on its head. So like typically, bands will talk about like, warriors going into battle and slaying each other and, that flying on magic dragons and stuff like that. I tried to like center it more in like a peasant uprising. So as opposed to a clash between elites, it's a clash against the elites. So I wanted to have kind of like, almost like an allegorical kind of sense, like where we can kind of connect to it, but without talking about politics or anything like that. I wanted people to feel connected to it. And that's where the story comes in. So not only is the album, kind of this spin of the traditional metal warrior narrative where it focuses on the, the lower classes, but it also has so I created the album as a concept album. So it tells a story from track 1 to track 12, and it has characters. The characters have different. So I use different vocal styles for the different characters in the album. It's got 3 acts. The what you listen to is the first track that sets up the story. The second act sets up the sort of antagonist and the climax of the story, and then the resolution in the third act. So I've always been a big fan of like King Diamond. King Diamond's like this, if you're not familiar with him, he's famous for having these sort of narrative albums where he like tells a story through the album. And I was always been really inspired by that, as like, cause when I listen to metal, I read the lyrics. Like a lot of people just listen to it and they don't care what they say, but I'll bring up the lyrics while I'm like listening to an album. I want to know what they're saying. And when the lyrics are good, like when they tell a story or they immerse you in it, it's like another element that most bands just completely discount. So like that was part of what I wanted to do, but you have to take it with a sense of humor. You can't, take it too seriously. Otherwise it's just not fun,
Yeah. And so, because the band name is Pillaging Villagers, right?
Yeah.
That's the name of the band name.
Yep.
But is that also is the album also that, or does the album have its own title as well? Or is it a self-titled album?
Yeah. The project is always intended to be like, it's funny because when I started out with it, I wasn't sure what it was going to be. Like, I wasn't sure it was going to be a collection of songs about this theme. Eventually it evolved into this, like, I want to tell this story. And I just kind of see this like a self-contained thing. Like, the band is called, like, there's no real band, but it's called Pillaging Villagers. The album's called Pillaging Villagers, and it's just a story about pillaging villagers overall.
Yeah.
So it's whereas like a lot of bands will be like, okay, our band name is whatever, and this is our first album, and it's called this, and it has a bunch of songs that aren't connected to either of those themes. It's I wanted to have this sort of immersive theme to everything, where you it's all designed to kind of amplify that experience of like, even like the track that I put out there. One of the things I did in the studio, so you'll hear in the chorus, we brought in some folks to do like backing vocals, like these like gang vocals. And I really wanted to have the album sound like it's at like a tavern, like it's being recorded like in a medieval, bar where there's a bunch of drunk dudes around just like swilling big tankards of ale.
Or a bacchanal is happening.
Yeah, and like belting out these songs. I wanted, like, even to that level, I wanted to have that thematic element throughout. And that's just like one example. There's bagpipe sound in it. There's church organ in it, where there's like where I start talking about some of the villains of the story. So like there's thematic elements from the imagery. So I got a great talented artist to do the cover art. Matt Stick.
Oh, the cover art's fantastic. That was my next question. It's awesome, the cover art.
And that kind of goes back to like with like tongue in cheek. Like I grew up with like Magic the Gathering, that sort of thing. Matt, the guy who did my art, is a Magic the Gathering artist, extremely talented. But that's like another example. Like the art tells a story. When you listen to the full album that's coming out in March, you'll see the characters that I talk about in the album on the album cover itself. So you kind of have that visual element. There's like everything is kind of connected to that theme and trying to immerse people, so to speak, as such as I can in a 39-minute punk metal album.
That makes sense. The funny thing I was going to say is that I have a ton of friends who are into D&D and Magic the Gathering and other such games. And I've always thought like I would love that because there's so much imagination involved and there's sort of storytelling involved, and I love all that. Of all the communities I've ever been a part of, whether it's music community, movie community, comedy community, whatever it is, it's the hardest thing to break into. I don't know how many times I've said to people like, hey, I'd love to like find out what this thing is, for years, since I was like a teenager, because I've always been the guy that when someone talked about something they loved passionately, I was only ever like more interested in it and wanted to be a part of it. And I know that sounds stupid, but lots of people over the years have talked about Magic the Gathering or Dungeons and Dragons or something and have been bullied for it or attacked for it or looked down upon it, or people sneer at it, or you're an adult and you still play kids games or whatever. Right. I've never been that guy. Like I don't understand that. I don't understand the division between childhood and adulthood. Fuck that. Whatever.
I agree.
Because if being an adult is putting away childish things, that sounds horrible. That sounds like the worst adulthood one could live. Right. And, people don't do it for music, for example. Like my dad was a bank manager and he played music. Like, and no one was like, oh, you play music? Ugh. So I've always wanted to like be a part of at least one game or sit in or just figure out what it is. And then those groups, man, that community, the most secretive community about anything, they're like, no, we don't let in outsiders. I have 6 people in my game. That's the game I play. And fuck you. Nobody gets in. And I'm semi-joking, but it's funny that I've asked almost everyone I know in the last 20 years who does anything like that, just be like, hey, think of me for a game one time. And it's like, no, don't.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if it's me or if it's
other people. I love playing those games. And I love bringing in more people. Like, I feel like I can't get enough people to want to do things like Magic. Like even my wife, I want sometimes to just go, but like a new set will come out and be like, man, I want to buy this set and play it. She's like, no, like it's not like as interesting to her as it is to me. So I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? Play by myself or go? Like there's.
Well, yeah, because I mean, and I hear about this because one of the big bands I'm a fan of is the Mountain Goats, and the guy John Darnielle, who kind of writes all the lyrics and sings up front for that band, is a huge Magic the Gathering guy, and he's always talking about the new cards he's got and the new die and the new thing, and I'm like, what does it all mean? I don't know what any of it means. I'm excited by it. It's because I want to be someone who's sort of dipped his toe in almost every culture that he can, if he can, without appropriating anything. But and it's the one culture that I've just been like, no one's going to give me an in. You know, I'm nerdy, I'm weird. Like, give me in.
I would love to get you in. When you come to Milwaukee, we'll take a whole day out of your itinerary and just we'll set up in the living room and play all day. But
that's happening, man. I want that to happen.
But like this has got like the album's got like so many of these like things that I like. There's so many pieces of me in it. Like it's got the Magic the Gathering aspect. It's got like even like Monty Python, like those aspects are in it. Like I think about the constitutional peasant when I think about certain aspects of the whole thing.
That's such a metal scene, isn't that? Like that's kind of like a metal scene. Like the way he is kind of metal before metal.
It is. It is. That's like I feel like he's a character in this story. Like and like I'm a big fan of history. Like I like military history. I like medieval history. You know, like that is really it goes throughout. I mean. The album's like theme is like it's a couple different areas of medieval history, but like I tried to like capture different elements. So you've got one of the villains, the Count, is kind of like a proto-capitalist, so that kind of like discusses like the rise of the guilds and like the fall of feudalism, and then talk about one of the characters is the bishop, and you talk about the role of religion in medieval society. So there's like so many pieces from the very nerdy to the very serious that are in this project. It feels like an encapsulation of my personality, like in musical form.
I love that though, because that's if any art is worth it, it's worth it when you put every aspect of yourself in it as much as you can. And you know, it's funny. It's why my band name Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures was a joke, sort of 15 years ago, and I thought I'll change it to something serious. And then someone pointed out, like, hey, all band names are stupid. Like, pick a band name, and they're all kind of stupid.
Yeah.
And not only that, but like a sense of humor is so part of who you are. Like, keep it. It's a silly name, but it's also a unique name. No one else is called Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures. So
it's a great name. I always thought that was a stupendous name.
It's one of those things. It's no Ghost Bath, but it's it's up there. But no, so I always like to sort of bring a bit of sense of humor into it as well. And I like, my big influences musically were always stuff like the Beatles and the Kinks and Led Zeppelin and stuff like that, all of whom have, I mean, the Kinks especially, half their songs would be characterized as comedic songs these days. You know what I mean? Even if they were taking them seriously, there's a whole bunch of them that, or whenever a band tries to do a genre, like when the Beatles tried to do what country and they did Rocky Raccoon, it becomes sort of a joke song because they're kind of taking on a genre that's sort of a bit jokey anyway. And I love that. Like, I love that kind of that adoption of things. Yeah. And also, I think if Monty Python teaches us anything about history, and what's so good about their two historical films, Holy Grail and Life of Brian, is that humanity doesn't really change. Human nature doesn't really change. And so the application of like idol worship, for example, in Life of Brian can be easily an allegory for today. The constitutional peasant, again, easily an allegory for today, and so on. And I love that about it. I was actually having a discussion with Kim's cousin the other day about this. And he was saying that he thinks, life in the past, whether it's caveman times or medieval times or whatever it is, was probably a lot simpler and a lot better. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't think that. I think technology evolves, and I think our opinions and therefore to some extent our society evolves. But humans as an animal at their core, I don't think they've ever changed. I think greed, lust, envy, all the 7 deadly sins, whatever they were, are apply today and apply, 5,000 years ago. And I don't think there's been any big difference. The only difference is 5,000 years ago, you could club your neighbor over the head and take his land, and people would just be like, okay, don't fuck with him because he kills people. And now if you clubbed your neighbor over the head, you'd get put in prison. But I mean, outside of that, the want or the desire to club your neighbor over the head is still there. It hasn't gone away.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. It's, just thinking about history, it's easy for us to kind of think of our society as somehow superior or in some ways, but I mean, there's drawbacks to every era in human history. And, to say one society is better than another, it's tough if you haven't experienced it. But
we're literally living in a society that is built right now on the division is entirely built on who we're told to hate and why. And that has been the formation of divisions forever. I mean, religion is a system of beliefs that's entirely built on the premise of who you hate. It's not so much built on who's in your gang as it is, if you are a Christian, you don't like these people. If you are a Muslim, you don't like these people. If you, and so on. It's entirely built on that premise. Political parties entirely built on that premise. Feudalism or whatever, monarchies, whatever, as far back as you go. And I was saying to Kim's cousin the other day, one of the most interesting things about coming from England is that because you learn history right back sort of from the formation of the country in a way, and you don't learn it particularly intricately, but you learn enough to kind of you see the evolution of government in the entirety of England, because you go from, a monarchy and a theocracy as the head of the land, all the way through to the aristocracy, to the landowners, to the Civil War, to the development of a democratic government, Magna Carta, and so on and so forth. Like, it just all plays out till you get the fact that we've kind of gone too far the other way now. We've kind of pushed the needle over too far the other way, but that is what it is. But no, so I find all that fascinating. So all of that being tied into the album is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the other thing that's great about Pillaging Villagers, to bring it right back to the core concept, is that I think the frustration of modern existence is we keep seeing these revolutions. We keep seeing these pillaging villages, as it were, whether it's the Women's March on one side or the January 6th debacle on the other. We see the unifying theme there is an unrest in the populace with the status quo, right? And the last time we saw this in the 60s and the 70s, history tries to tell us that there was real change that came out of that, even if now we're reckoning with the fact that was just token change to some extent. So desegregation is phenomenal. It's fantastic. But it's the first step. It's not the last step. We're still, and that's just one example from civil rights. But I mean, same, women getting the vote didn't end the discussion on sexism. You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like your album is also poised to tackle some of that. If I'm not giving it too highfalutin
I'm glad you read that into. I mean, like I kind of said earlier, like I wanted to be political without being political. Like, I think once the album comes out, you'll be able to see like the lyrics in it, the things it talks about, they are revolutionary. Like they do have an anti-establishment bent to it, but without being like, I think people's ability to see social criticism is easier if you use allegory and metaphor than if you just say something straight up and be like, change this about society. I want people to be able to read these lyrics and see situations that they deal with, or situations in their society, or problems with our society, whether it's the power of the rich over the poor, the inequality of wealth, the desire for the powerful to use the meek for their own ends. I mean, those are themes that resound throughout history, whether it's, a fake medieval fantasy world that I created or the society that we live in now. So I'm hoping that people can kind of like make that connection and see it as like that rebellious music that it's intended to be. It has this punk energy, this very like, riotous, to be, just pillaging approach, that I want people to feel that like I want them to feel kind of inspired or like get their heart going when they listen to it, both from the pace of the music as well as like how it makes them feel. But that's a dream, I guess.
That's awesome. How are you releasing it online? Are you doing DistroKid or CD Baby, you said, right?
Yeah, so I'm releasing it right now. I'm just releasing track by track. So if you follow me on Facebook, I'll probably release like a track every 3 weeks or something like that, leading up to the release in March. And right now it's just on Bandcamp and YouTube. And then in March, it'll be on all streaming platforms. So Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, whatever. And then hopefully we'll get like additional like reviews and stuff. We've already had a little bit of like very, very early press, but I'm hoping to get, like reviews from various publications and things like that. That'll help kind of get the word out there and build momentum for the release. But that's the plan right now.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me as someone who's sort of been independently releasing albums every month, pretty much.
Yeah, you're very prolific.
2 years, and some people, want me to stop, which is fine, but they don't have to buy it. But the thing that's fascinating me from considering all the platforms that are out there, whether it's Spotify or whatever. You have the ability, obviously, on Spotify to do stuff like tracks and follow bands and things like that. But there's no real kind of review setup, right? You can't give something 1 out of 5 stars.
Yeah.
Even for movies, there's a platform called Letterboxd that allows you to track the movies you watch, give them a rating, write a review or whatever. It doesn't necessarily link to the movie makers, so the movie makers only find out if they look at it. But IMDb, again, allows you to kind of rate and review movies. There isn't that real thing of rating and reviewing albums, and that might be a good thing. I don't know off the top of my head whether that's a good thing or not. I don't know whether I want people to be able to go to Bandcamp and go, I hate this, I fucking hate this. I don't know whether that's a good thing or not.
Sure.
Because so often people will. It's like Twitter adding the thumbs down button so often, or Reddit having a thumbs down button. I don't necessarily agree with that. If you don't like something, shut up. If you like something, you want to be able to promote it because it's free entertainment. I mean, you might pay for a Spotify streaming package, or you may pay $5 or $10 for the album on Bandcamp, but ultimately it's cheap and or free entertainment. Yeah. So the idea of someone being able to negatively review it is ridiculous.
Yeah.
However, the plight of independent musicians is such that trying to get press is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
What's even harder is getting likes, retweets, shares, that kind of stuff. And I think we've talked about this before, and I've certainly talked about it on the podcast, so I won't go too much into it. But as an independent creator, I don't care what people's opinion of Facebook is or viewpoint of Facebook is. Mm-hmm. If you like, share, comment, it pushes it into people's feeds.
Right.
And so all I would urge people to do, and I have lots of friends who love metal. I have lots of friends who are independent musicians. And I have lots of people who want to support this stuff. So, when we post about David's album, please like, comment, share, retweet, that kind of stuff. Because, I'm sure, Dave, you're going to go out of your way to try and find blogs and people to review this stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of platforms where you can submit that I'll give you links to if you don't know already. I think one is actually called like Submit Hub.
Yeah, I've looked at a couple of those for sure. But yeah, I'll be happy to take any recommendations you have for sure.
It's a pay-to-play thing. So it's sort of like some people want $1, some people want $2, some people want $5, depending on how important they think their blog is.
Right.
And some will like, hey, I liked the song enough to include it in my Instagram stories, but I didn't like the song enough to review it or whatever, right? So there's different levels. I'll retweet this song, but I'm not going to write a review of it. Someone else will be like, I'm going to write a review of this whole album because I love everything about it.
Right.
It's different levels and different monetary values attached to each of those levels. So, and I think it is it's a platform that I think is built by creatives for creatives. So I don't hate on it too much. I do think you spend some money on there to get feedback that doesn't really always benefit you. Like right. I'll throw dollars and dollars at if I think a new album that I've done is particularly decent, especially if it has all my collaborators on it and it's got brass and female vocals and a whole bunch of other stuff that I wouldn't normally have. It's not just me in my front room, but it's something I've really spent time over. Mm-hmm. And I have about 3 albums like that, which I'm like, those are my 3 albums. All the rest are just kind of things that I do that I enjoy doing. Mm-hmm. But when I put them on Submit Hub, in order to fulfill whatever that dollar thing is, sometimes reviewers are just like, yeah, I see what you're going for, but I didn't like the mix. Thanks for sending it along. Right. Bink. And then you're like, oh, great, that's $1. Like, So there's a little bit of that, but I would still suggest it if you can, especially because yours is it's a genre, or at least within a specific realm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You will probably be able to pinpoint the blogs or the online reviewers or the tweeters or the influencers that you would want representing this album. Right. Because like you say, it's a concept album. And while it has a mash of genres, there's folk in there, there's metal in there, there's some thrash, there's all sorts of different stuff. Yeah. It appeals to a community. Right. Whereas my stuff is just sort of singer-songwriter-y, folky thing. Like it kind of appeals to everyone and nobody. You
can stamp a genre on Pillaging Villagers pretty easily. So that's definitely an advantage. There's nothing, and this is part of the creative process. Like I spent a lot of, I haven't written music in a while, but last time I was heavy into writing music, I really wanted to do something progressive and do something very different for anything that was out there. This album, I'm really trying to synthesize existing things that I like. Like I wanted to make an album that I would put on, that I would enjoy, as opposed to something that was put out as its main goal being really different. So it ends up kind of being I don't think there's an original thought in the whole in the whole thing, but the merging that I've done is such that I can't think of anything that sounds exactly like it, but it definitely fits in with just like you said, there's blogs that I could and am reaching out to that will probably find it interesting, if not good, hopefully.
Oh yeah, 100%, definitely, and it will be successful, I hope, for you. And I can certainly see a path to success for it, most definitely. So I really think that'll be the case. Nice. Again, anywhere that I can help with stuff I know platforms that do merch, and again, I'm sure you know all this kind of stuff, but if you need any help with anything like that, I'm here for you, buddy, and whatever I can do to promote this thing, because if you stick the album cover on a t-shirt, I'll fucking buy it in a heartbeat. So you just tell me. I'm all about graphic tees and posters and whatever I can get to kind of promote this stuff, because I'm trying, as much as I love streaming services and corporate media as much as the next guy. I've got Disney Plus and Netflix, just like everyone else. I do think that it absolutely is should be a human goal to support and champion and hold up independent creativity. Because if we don't do it, the corporations will swoop in and take away our ability to do it. So at the moment, we have the ability to play on the playing field with everyone else. My songs are on Spotify along with Paul McCartney's and along with whoever. I'm not getting the listens he's getting, but I'm on there. I'm on the platform. The moment. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, dude.
No, I was going to say that's I've talked to a bunch of people in the last couple of weeks, just as I've started the promotional sort of campaign for this, and the opinions really vary on whether Spotify or Facebook are good. in some ways it's like, okay, I'm spending all this time and effort. Like I'm putting so much of my labor value into this thing. And like from a labor value to return standpoint, it's like the worst use of your time. So like from that perspective, but like the way I look at it is like I created a piece of art, you know, it's punk metal music. So art is maybe a little bit too much of a.
No, it's definitely art. Don't put it down.
But I created something, and now I can send it anyone over like the only press we've gotten so far, and I've only been promoting for like 4 days, is some guy in Norway like found our I sent it to like a listserv of different groups that like I had to like figure out where like how we got the things. So like that's, and for me that's like an advantage. Like I think of it as like, wow, I get to have this heard, and if that's your only goal, then it's awesome. But if you're like trying to make money, if you're trying to like recoup your investment, it's like I totally get why people are like, this is.
Well, the truth of the matter is, to be honest, when you're talking specifically about music, the only way to truly do it is still touring. It's playing. It's getting in front of people. Yeah, it's being in a pub. It's being in a bar. It's being in a small theater. It's being in a club. Whatever it is. Yeah, that's still the best way. Now, in terms of promotion, because what then happens? But in order to go do that and be successful at that, you need a Facebook page, a Twitter feed, a Bandcamp page, a Spotify, so that when someone hears your band in a club, they can immediately go and all of that stuff is in place, right? Now, if you're like you and me, where our musicians are not, my collaborators are essentially like session musicians for me, even though and similarly for you, where all our band is digital, right? Our band doesn't exist as like a touring entity. Right. The only option we have are the platforms that are provided. Right. And for us to put in the work to make those things fly. Yeah. It's why getting friends and family, even if they tell you they don't see how it helps, and I've heard that so many times, it's why getting friends and family to like and share something really does help. Because while you may have 10 friends in common, there's probably 150, 200 friends that they have that you don't have in common. Yeah. And one of those 200, sales techniques tell us that like one or two of those 200 people will listen. Right. So you have to have, I have 500 friends on Facebook, right? And it's diminishing returns. So if only 10% of those like and share those, and then 10% of their friend group will only listen to it, and then 10% of that will actually only buy it. Right. You're only talking like 15, 20 people, right? And I'm on social all day, every day with various different things, podcasts and music and websites and things. So it's and nowhere near as much as other people. I mean, I'm actually less on social now than I ever have been in the last 10 years. I do less of it now. Yeah. But it's because I care less. It genuinely, if I put out an album and a few people buy it, great. But it's all about creating for me. But, you've got to build a MailChimp newsletter thing. You've got to have a blog. You've got to have a Facebook page, a Twitter page. You've got to somehow find a group on Reddit that are going to let you share it on Reddit without going, this contravenes the group's rules and we're going to, block you for a day, or, because Reddit is run by people who like the internet the way it was in 1996. And I think we should have more rules on the internet, a lot less of them.
I was just told that today. Like part of my first week campaign is like today was the Reddit day. And I'm like reading all the rules for like it's a new music subreddit, and there's more rules for submitting new music on the new music Reddit. It's just like part of it makes you feel like that scene in Office Space where they're like talking about money laundering, and they're like these smart like computer science guys, and they're like looking it up in the dictionary, and they're like, how do these idiot criminals know so much about crime and we're so dumb? Like that's how I kind of feel with like when I'm approaching promotion or social media. Like I feel like I know a lot, or I learned a lot about producing music, and I know what I like, and like the music, like the skills that it takes to make music and the skills that it takes to promote your music are two so different things that I sometimes I don't even know like how I'm gonna how to proceed. Like I did some research, and then if that doesn't work, I don't know what I'll do.
Kim is literally a social media marketer, but also has her own company.
Yeah.
And she'll say, hardest thing in the world to be your own client. Hardest thing in the world to be like your own client. Sorry, I cut you off there, dude. Finish.
No. That's absolutely apt. Like it's what also frustrates me is like, there'll be like some 16-year-old kid that like posts a video of like him falling down the stairs or something, and it gets like 1 billion likes. And I'm like, I spent 2 years and like a ton of my own money and time to produce this like long piece of content. And it's like, can you please share it? Please like it. Please listen to it. Please review it. It's like,
right.
If it would be frustrating if it weren't for the fact that I'm only doing this for my own enjoyment. Like if I was really like trying to, make a career of it, or if I felt like this was somehow tied to my like personal worth or something like that, I would be really frustrated. Now I just kind of think it's funny, but it's definitely annoying.
Well, so as someone who's sort of been internet creative for sort of 10 years plus, it does get, the frustrations do get easier, but they don't go away, right? Mm-hmm. And the only way I've found to kind of truly navigate it is be excited for the wins when they land, and that might sound obvious, but it's little things like, on one hand, if you looked at my album sales, you would be like, well, I don't even know why this guy fucking bothers, right? But that's the
wrong way to look at it. Yeah.
No, totally. But I have, and I don't look at it that way. I'm just saying, if you looked at it that way, that there would be a problem.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I can point to movies that, and both documentaries and fiction movies that have used my music in it. And I can point to people who like fucking love like every album that I put out by them. And it might only be 10 people, but I'm like, to me, in a world where there's millions and millions and millions of people making music every single day and filling these platforms full of their own songs and tunes and stuff, which, by the way, I love. The fact that 10 or 15 people go out of their way in their lives to support me, I always see that as a win, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Similarly,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, similarly with the After Movie Diner, while our uploads or responses have been pretty static, like they don't wildly fluctuate. It doesn't matter if I cover, the latest Star Wars movie or not that I've ever done the latest Star Wars movie, the latest Star Trek movie, which I have done, or a Marvel movie, or whether I cover, an obscure horror film from the 70s. It doesn't matter. The same people listen, the same people download, the same people think. However, and this is one thing that I would say is, we know your story, you know your story. But if you proceed from a place of legitimacy, like if you, and you're 100% legitimate, I'm just saying, if you proceed on the internet from a place of legitimacy, the After Movie Diner is a real movie website. Right. They don't need to know that it's built on a $250 Squarespace site and that, one dude with a beard in Connecticut updates it when he feels like it. As far as PR companies are concerned, the After Movie Diner is a proper website, right? It's as proper and legitimate as any other movie website out there. Right. It's not, doesn't get anywhere near the looks or listens or numbers or whatever, but that doesn't matter. As long as you proceed from a position of, if you go to Twitter, After Movie Diner is there. You go to Instagram, After Movie Diner is there. You go to Facebook, After Movie Diner is there. You Google After Movie Diner, that's me. Everything is logoed and looks as legitimate as I can make it look.
Yeah.
The numbers matter so little. This year, for example, I've been going back and trying to look through 2021 and seeing how it all feels. Mm-hmm. This year, I interviewed Steve Guttenberg. To me, that's a huge fucking win. That's a huge fucking win.
Exactly.
It's those things that I try and tie if I try and tie my self-worth to this at all, and I don't, I tend to tie my self-worth to the creation of stuff in the first place.
Yeah.
So my self-worth is tied to the songwriting, not how many people hear the song.
Yeah.
But the fact that I've been able to, over 10 years, interview the people I've interviewed, made the friends that I've made, be part of the community that I am, sold the albums that I have, been part of films. I'm in independent movies. My music is in independent movies.
Right.
To me, it's all those little wins.
Oh, yeah.
Because over time, it creates a body of work that I don't need a million people to like. I need one person to really like, you know?
Yeah.
So that's how I justify it. That's where I come at it from. And if that helps, I hope it does.
I'm exactly the same way. Like I conceived of the idea, the name Pillaging Villagers is a band I started when I was 16. Like it's been a lifelong thing. Like it's just a dream to fulfill it. Like that in itself, like, is enough of a win for me to like walk away and be like, wow, that was successful. Like I'll tell you how low my bar is for success. When I was 16, I was really big into like underground punk, and one of my friends gave me a taped off of a CD tape, like a like not even like their official tape of a band called Onward to Mayhem. And they're from Minneapolis.
Another great name.
Minneapolis band. They only put out one album, and I still listen to it. Like it's one of those things that just like it connected with me at the right time. And they didn't have any social presence. They didn't have like, no one ever wrote about them. It's just something that someone gave me. And I'm like, every once in a while, I'll just put it on. Like, this is awesome. Like if that happens from one person, like if this album gets heard by one like kid or some guy or some person like who's like going through like whatever, that'll be enough. Like that's how low the bar is for success for this. And I hope that it happens, but it was just for me, just a dream to get to make it, you know. It was awesome.
Well, I invited all my metal friends or people who like that stuff to your Facebook page. So I don't know how many have joined. I didn't go back to look, but I will continue to promote it. The other thing is, dude, is I'm currently with my band in a bunch of Twitter DM groups that are groups of independent musicians who sort of believe in what I believe in, which is sort of sharing and supporting each other. And we build playlists on Spotify of each other's music and then challenge each other to stream them at least like twice a week or whatever, even if we're not like listening. The reason why you do that is the algorithm that once you hit that 1,000 plays, which is Spotify's like benchmark, Spotify starts to take you seriously. And you start to show up in the Spotify generated playlist. So Discover Weeklies and release radars and all that. Awesome. But also, also you do get people, because everyone then tweets and shares and retweets and stuff. You do get people listening to the playlists legitimately. And the one thing I've learned is when I put together a playlist of these guys, I don't put any old shit on there. I mean, there are some people who were in this DM group who, and I won't name names or whatever, that their music is not for me. I don't think it's any good, and it is what it is. And best of luck to them, but it's not for me. Love them, but not for me. I share and retweet their stuff, but I don't put it in a playlist. The stuff I put in playlists are stuff that I legitimately think a ton of, even if it is in a genre I like. I have dance music in there. I have heavy stuff in there. I have sort of pop in there as well, because there's a lot of like female vocalists out there on Twitter kind of doing pop stuff. There's good pop and there's bad pop, and so I do have some playlists that I can like put you on, and there are some DM groups that if you're going to start promoting the album on Twitter in March, I can hopefully kind of introduce you to these DM groups.
That would be awesome.
And see how that goes.
You've already provided so much help. I mean, just that one post was awesome. I appreciate it so much. I can't even express it.
If I can't find something daily if I can't find a friend of mine who does a creative thing on a daily or at least a weekly basis, like I don't know, like I like being the one doing that. And it's not about trying to be, it's about trying to get other people to do the same thing. It's not about like, hey, look at me, I'm great. It's about if everyone did this, even when they thought about it, like just once a month or something, if everyone did something like that, I just went, oh yeah, John has a podcast. Let me go to his Facebook page, find the latest one, and I'll just share that. Like I don't know if someone, if like I say, the 500 people I have on Facebook, if 10% of them did that, it would be it would be 35, 40 more people than do it currently. So,
right. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's,
I have friends that are, they're creative people, but they don't do anything creative. I don't know why, but like, I would love to like, just as you said, like encourage, like through this kind of culture of encouraging people to kind of pursue their creative goals. Like, think how much more interesting life would be if like all of your friends that are creative, but are like creativity is like dormant, if they were like encouraged to do something through some small effort on your part. That would be awesome.
Well, it was interesting when you said about kind of the 2 years you'd put into it and so on. I had a filmmaker friend of mine on the podcast where we talked about his latest movie, my friend Charlie Roxburgh, and I've been in a few of his things. And him and his colleague Matt Farley make a bunch of movies in New England, and they're kind of putting 2 out a year. That's their plan right now, is to put 2 movies out a year. Wow. And he said, I see people on Etsy who put, a scarf or a wall hanging or something that they put up. And when humans look at that and they go, wow, they're charging $350 for this handmade thing, right. Human beings go, right, yeah, $350. That's probably because they had to knit it or crochet it, or they had to build it, or they had to whatever. And whether it's a woodwork piece or a fabric piece or whatever, they had to dye it and whatever. That was hours of their work. So yeah, $350. I understand that. Like, I get where that's coming from.
Right.
A movie or an album or whatever takes multiple people over multiple years for multiple thousands of dollars. My friend puts like $5,000 to $10,000 in every time he makes a movie.
Yep.
Puts it up on Vimeo for $12, and people are like, I don't know that I want to buy a movie for $12.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally.
But they'll go to Etsy and be like, ooh, a bespoke piece of pottery that's $30, $40, $50 because, this person spent a day on it. I'm like, that's great. Yes, buy that pottery or buy that wall hanging or buy that whatever. Like, I love Etsy. Like, give money to independent people. I fucking love that. But to look at that as a real thing and understand how that was made, but then to look at an album and a movie and be like, shouldn't that just be free on Napster?
I know, right? It is so weird how people devalue, like people's value assessment of various things. It's just funny. Like, you're absolutely right. People should know like how much effort it takes to do like movies or music, stuff like that. But yeah, it's just been so devalued. I don't know if that's the fault of the music industry or the media industry for making all these things like so accessible to people. I don't know how it became that way, but there was a point in music history where, if you liked one song off of the new album, you had to go plop down $20 to buy and hear that song. Like, at some point, music was valued, and then it became not valued. Same with movies.
Well, it's because back when music was just on physical media, or back when movies were just made by studios, right, predominantly, or at least distributed by studios, even if they were made independently.
Right.
There was this culture of a gatekeeper that someone else has decided this is what people should be listening to.
Right.
When actually what happens is someone has decided, I think kids will like this. We will put hundreds of thousands of marketing dollars behind this thing.
Right.
This thing will get radio play. It'll be played in shopping malls, supermarkets. It'll be played when you're queuing up at the post office, whatever it is.
Right.
And then people go, I really like this song. And then they go buy that song and da-da-da-da.
Yes.
And
I totally agree. But like, because the thing they're buying, like a piece of plastic with a cardboard wrapper around it, like that's not intrinsically worth $20. It's the value that they assign. Like, they've been able to assign that value. And then at some point, I don't know how, but the value that we assign to the exact same product is like infinitesimal. Like, it's basically zero. Like, if it's not free, like, I'm not even wasting my time.
Well, so because what ends up happening is you have so that $20 CD had to cover a lot of things. It had to pay the artist, pay the corporation, pay the marketing off, pay the printer, pay whatever, right? It had to like pay for stuff.
I totally get from the perspective of
no. And you couldn't get the music anywhere else. I couldn't go online and get the music.
Yeah, so it's a demand problem. So like, because it's the only way you can get it, they can charge whatever they want. But now because you can get it anywhere, so it's just there's so much supply that the demand doesn't doesn't result in a price that's commensurate with what you pay to do it.
Currently, there seems to be two forms of gatekeepers, one which we can push into as independent artists and one that we can't. So there's still the gatekeeper of the recording company, the record company, whatever, who, even if it's a Bieber or a Billie Eilish or something, someone who was found online and then promoted, while the record companies are now, instead of sending A&R guys out to clubs every week to kind of try and find a new band, what they're doing is who has what followers on Instagram, who has what views on YouTube, who has whatever. So now corporations want a sure thing. It's the same with movies, actors, whatever. They want a sure thing. So they trial the internet for influencers essentially, who also make music. Right. Very difficult to get to that place unless you can put a few $100s or a few $1,000s of your own money marketing that internet thing. So boosting an Instagram post, boosting a Facebook post, putting in a YouTube advert out there, whatever it is. Unless you yourself can do that, very difficult to kind of get those views and things. And the only way it organically happens, I presume, is sort of communities of teens especially who are very engaged on social media all the time, sharing that stuff around. Whereas when you kind of get to our age, people are less likely to share our shit. Right. Where we can make a bit of an inroad is the Spotify algorithm or the streaming playlist algorithm, which is there are certain things out there, whether it's Twitter groups, whether it's Submit Hub, whether it's things like Submit Hub, where, again, you have to pay to play. It's slightly less than having to market each individual thing, but you bombard playlists and things with your track. And the people I see having the most success are people who pick a single track and for sometimes 5 years make that track be the thing that is going to sail throughout the internet for them. So I have some friends of mine on my DM group, music group. They have one track on Spotify. That's it. And it's got like 50,000 plays, which is great for them. Yeah. I have, 300 tracks on Spotify and about 10 of them have over 1,000 plays because I pick a track to put on each new playlist. Sure. Once it hits 1,000, I hit the guy who does that playlist and say, hey, can you swap it out for this song? Once that song hits 1,000, whatever. So it looks like I have a bunch of songs on Spotify that is doing really well, right? Yeah. And by doing that, your song starts showing up in other people's playlists, whether you know it or not. Got it. And occasionally you hit a trend. So, for example, I had a song from an album 6 years ago, and the song was just called Sea Shanty. And it wasn't an old sea shanty. It wasn't like me redoing an old sea shanty. Oh, okay. But it was my own sea shanty that I had written. Yeah. And when this sea shanty trend came around recently on TikTok or whatever, that song suddenly started getting hundreds of plays. So occasionally you get lucky like that. Right, you know what I mean? That's cool. But that's more your the thing you'll find is you'll get tired promoting an entire album. Right. When you get onto Twitter, Spotify, you start doing those things. Pick the song you think exemplifies the album the most. Put that on as many playlists as you can and hope that people organically find the album based on that one song. Yeah. So that's kind of where we can kind of game the system a little bit. It's still a shit ton of work on our end, but it doesn't cost you anywhere near as much money as trying to market the damn thing.
For sure. Yeah. No, this is all awesome advice. That's great to have.
Sorry. So that's it. But anyway, the segue I was thinking was earlier you were talking, when we were talking about your album specifically, we were talking about how human nature doesn't change, how the struggle between corporate and the little guy exists, whether it's the elders of the town or whether it's, Facebook and Trump or whatever. And a movie that exemplifies this at what I think is at the height of both the capitalist but also a very human season is the Christmas season, because the Christmas season is fascinating because we both accept the capitalization of it. In fact, we kind of fucking love it because everywhere we go, there's Christmas music, Christmas decorations, Christmas things, Christmas movies, Christmas whatever. We kind of love it. That kind of makes us feel warm and cozy. But it's also the time where we bring out our greatest humanity, if that is to be believed. Where people do more charity work, go to more soup kitchens, take more people in, support each other more, give each other gifts, whatever. So it's this really interesting thing. And a movie which talked about that very thing and the struggle that one might have with it came out in November 7th, 1980 in Pittsburgh, one of my favorite towns, and it's a great horror town, and that is Christmas Evil, which is the thing that you were here to talk about. So how about that? We've managed to tie your story, your album, our story, your album, Monty Python and Christmas Evil all into one. It's all part of the same human story, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to tick a lot of boxes for people. We've covered a lot of ground.
Listen, I love these conversations. I genuinely do. I have authors on this show. I have musicians on this show. I have filmmakers on this show. And I'm going to keep beating my little drum for independent creativity as much as I can. So if people have to wait through an hour of that conversation before they get to the movie, that's fuck you. You have to do that. You have to wade through some people talking about their art to get to the point where we talk about someone else's art.
Exactly.
And that is 1980s Christmas Evil, originally titled You Better Watch Out, made by the writer-director Lewis Jackson. And why don't you, as you watched it twice since we watched this a couple of weeks back. We've started, so again, in our story at the beginning, this is how it ties the story in. We were doing a movie, Friday night movie night in 2020. We hadn't done that for summer 2021. We all got busy. You guys went off and did your thing. We went off and did our thing. And Dave hit me up recently and was kind of like, hey, we should do movie nights again. We're kind of like the season, the nights are getting dark or whatever. Like, let's do movie nights again. And so I was like, okay, yes, that'd be great. But let's do, in the lead up to Christmas horror movies, or like weird Christmas movies, or Christmas alternative programming, whatever you want to call it. And you were all down for that. Christmas Evil was it was the first one I picked, right? Because it was between this and Black Christmas. And so we did Christmas Evil the first week and then Black Christmas the second week, both of which were awesome. But that's how this podcast came around, because I'm like, well, I need a Christmas episode, and Dave's never been on the show, and Dave has this album to promote. It all fits, right, dude? It all happens.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry. I wasn't ready. I was busy pickling some fish. I like pickling things. Fish, vegetables, running shoes. Anyway. Apologies. We sadly have to pause for some ads. Maybe if more of you supported us on Patreon. But there it is. The After Movie Diner doesn't endorse any of these advertisers. We don't even know what you're going to hear. It's forced technical AI wizardry. And don't fool yourself. None of us are in control. The robots are coming, and they want to sell us insurance.
The fact that you hadn't seen, so I didn't learn about the fact that you hadn't seen the movie until after we watched it. And that really made it for me. Like, if whenever we talk about movies all the time. Like, your knowledge is just vastly it's just like how much more you know about movies than me is just, it's embarrassing. So like to watch a movie that neither of us had seen and like experience that feeling of seeing a movie for the first time together, that was really special. And the fact that it was this kind of crazy movie was even more special for sure.
So this is my favorite kind of experience to have, which is, as a movie fan, as a horror fan, as a B-movie fan, I hear about films all the time, right, where people are like, you have to see this, you have to see that. Either that or you come across it because your favorite Blu-ray releaser is putting it out on like a special edition or whatever. And I have to say that 9 times out of 10, when you follow that recommendation, while you can see what it is that people like about the movie, you kind of go, it's not like there's nothing special there. Like, it's fine. It's good. I'm glad it exists now in the pantheon of things I know about. Right. Christmas Evil, on the other hand, was one that, and I think this is the same for many people. Many people will know the story behind Black Christmas. Many people will know Silent Night, Deadly Night. And then everyone knows kind of Gremlins and some of those more family-friendly Christmas horror comedy kind of crossovers.
Right.
But Christmas Evil is one that people talk about, people know, but it's not mentioned particularly frequently. Yeah. Silent Night, Deadly Night has been kind of done to death. We've even done it here on the show. And I think maybe it's because people like Leanna Quigley, who's in Silent Night, Deadly Night, is kind of still out there doing conventions and things. And it is a legitimately like fun, rompy, disturbing movie, Silent Night, Deadly Night. So it does keep kind of getting the thing. Christmas Evil, on the other hand, I'd heard about it, but there had never been a thing where I was like, oh, I'm going to put that in.
Right.
And then it was the looking up Christmas horror movies for us to do this series of Christmas horror movies in the lead up to Christmas for our movie nights on Wednesday. I came across it again, and it was the line where someone said, oh, this is like Taxi Driver meets Silent Night, Deadly Night. And I was like, okay, now you've just mentioned two of my favorite all-time movies. How have I never seen Christmas Evil? Yeah. And also, I know how you like kind of B movies or wacky movies or weird movies or discovering movies.
Yeah.
And the best thing about a movie night with friends is if the movie's shit, at the end of it, you just have a good laugh and you all just kind of go, well, that was a lot of shit. And you've wasted maybe 90 minutes, but that's it. And if it's great, you have this incredible unifying experience.
Yes.
And what was great about Christmas Evil is I got to the end of Christmas Evil and I'm like, that. First of all, that's one of the greatest movies ever made.
You said that.
Fucking loved it.
You said this is the best movie I've ever seen. At the end, I won't spoil. I'll let you talk about what happens at the end of the movie. But when you saw that last scene, you're like, as the credits rolling, like, this is the best thing I've ever seen.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And, I immediately took to social media. It was like, how is it that no one has ever really come to me and gone, John, watch Christmas Evil. Christmas Evil's amazing. Because no one ever had.
Yeah.
And I was like, it became, and I love it. I know that I didn't discover it, but it feels like this little thing where I'm like, I'm over here loving Christmas Evil now. And not that I don't like Silent Night, Deadly Night or Gremlins or anything else, but like every year from now on, I will watch Christmas Evil.
Yes.
Because it's this fascinating take on the season that you think is going to be very cliche and ends up just being kind of wild and poetic.
Yeah. It was so unexpected. Like I kind of wrote down like some things that I was like, okay, I want to make sure I mention. The thing that just like, I'd expected it to be like goofy and like when I think of like Christmas horror movies, I think of like almost like taking the piss at Christmas. Like Christmas is part of the movie, but like we only use it for like puns about murder. Like I think during the movie, I said I made a bad pun, ho ho homicide. Like it would have stuff like you ever seen Santa's Sleigh with Bill Goldberg?
Yes.
Okay.
That's another one. Yeah.
That's kind of what I was expecting. Like really over the top violence and just like jokes about Christmas. I was expecting to be goofy and it wasn't goofy. And that's really what I take away from it. And like we said earlier about the, that experience of having a movie that is not really that well known. Like I remember like the first time I saw like, when I was, my early 20s, when I started seeing like, trying to get into like B movies and watching a lot more B movies, when I saw something like, I don't know, like Extra or Zardoz or something like that, like movies that are like, now you and I know, those are like, everyone's heard of Extra and Zardoz. But when I first saw it when I was like 20, I was like, I can't wait to talk about this to everyone. I haven't had that feeling in a long time. And that's kind of what I got from Christmas Evil. It still feels underground. Like it feels like no one knows about it. And I can now impress people and wow them with this crazy movie.
Yeah, and every so often that happens, and it's what I love about it is it's one of the reasons that spurs me on to not only keep watching movies that I've only tangentially heard about on the hope that it's another one of these, but also what kind of keeps me collecting, especially at the moment you have this whole array of boutique movie releases who are, whether it's Shout Factory, Arrow, Vinegar Syndrome, Synapse, whatever. There's a whole bunch of them. And they're all putting out different types of movies. Some are putting out action movies, some are putting out horror movies, some are putting out whatever. Some have bought up, like Shout Factory bought up John Carpenter's collection. So if you buy a special edition John Carpenter, it's probably a Shout Factory edition. Vinegar Syndrome put Christmas Evil out probably a year or two before I really got into Vinegar Syndrome. Now I live in Connecticut. I'm about half an hour, 45 minutes away from the Archive, which is the retail store that Vinegar Syndrome owns in Connecticut because they're out of Bridgeport.
I've seen your post. It looks awesome.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best, man. If you ever come to Connecticut, once we got our house and you and Bryn come stay, I'll take you there and you'll just be like in heaven. It's the best. Awesome. They have vinyl and VHS in the basement, Blu-ray, DVD, and other stuff on the top level. And it's just, you could spend a day there. But, and I'm getting to know the guys who run the Archive. I'm getting to know the guys with Vinegar Syndrome. And every quarter, Vinegar Syndrome kind of puts releases out, and they do like a Black Friday sale and da-da-da-da-da. So I've got very used to, over the last couple of years, of just got kind of dipping into that, and Vinegar Syndrome slowly becoming like my label. Although I buy from all different labels and whatever. Right. But Vinegar Syndrome sort of slowly started pointing towards, as you say, some of these movies that people know about, fans like, but they're kind of on the fringes compared to sort of other things. So I sort of see Shout Factory as the major and Vinegar Syndrome as the minor. And while Shout Factory might put out the crowd-pleasing stuff, and Arrow might put out the crowd-pleasing stuff, or the film connoisseur stuff, right? Vinegar Syndrome puts out the stuff for the true fucking movie lover. You know what I mean? Yeah. And to me, Christmas Evil is the Christmas horror movie for the true fucking movie lover. Exactly. And that's how it is. True fucking movie lover. Like 3 words, just boom, boom, boom. That's what I think of as Christmas Evil. So as you saw it again recently, and I love that you watched the second time, and I got to do a second watch before Christmas, I think. Give us the rundown. I'm going to let you do the plot rundown for people. You don't have to do like every little beat in it, but just give us kind of
I'm honored, first of all, to be able to do the plot rundown. So so plot of Christmas Evil. Harry is a dude who's like kind of like a lowly loser. Like he gets picked on by his coworkers. His brother kind of makes fun of him, and he's obsessed with Christmas. Like he, in like a creepy way. Like the first scene is him like dancing around in like a Santa costume while Christmas music plays. And initially you kind of find more as you go throughout that he's kind of like obsessed with Santa, and he's obsessed with like being Santa. So he has like a book of like naughty and nice children. And over time he kind of like puts his plan in motion to like be Santa in like a kind of a nefarious way. Like he's very like creepy about how I'm trying to beat around the bush and not talk right away about the cross breathing scene. I wanted to come back to that scene, but I feel like that sets everything up. Like his like origin is he was like a kid. Like the first scene of the movie is he's a kid and he's like watching. He's like down like on the stairwell, like looking, and like Santa comes in and Santa starts putting presents around the tree. And he's like really amazed. And then he goes off to bed and then comes down later, and Santa's like with his mom, and his mom's got like her skirt like hiked up, and he's like hovering around her, like her crotch is here, and he's like hovering around it, and it's a very amorous sort of scene. She's got like stockings on, and he's like seeing this, and he gets really disturbed by it, and that like throws this whole obsession with Santa.
And it's a fascinating scene because there's in a Christmas horror, one expects, or in any horror actually, one expects your psychopath to be scarred by something at the beginning of the movie. And in Silent Night, Deadly Night, famously, it's the fact that a guy dressed as Santa kills and rapes the mother of the main protagonist and kills the father in front of the main guy's eyes, which is obviously a disgusting and distraught kind of thing. It's a very negative thing. This scene, and this is what makes this even more intriguing and interesting and adult in a way, it's not a disgusting scene at all. It's the father. His father is dressed up as Santa because there isn't really a Santa, right? His father is dressed up as Santa and is sort of playing the part. And the mother has brought the kids downstairs, and it's like, oh, look, kids, there's Santa. Now go off to bed, otherwise you won't get your presents, right? So they go off to bed. Yeah. But it's the father. It's not Santa. So the mother in her robe and her dressing robe or whatever goes over to the father and is like, thank you for doing this. One presumes they go up, the kids go to bed, and the mother goes over. Off-screen
conversation,
Off-screen, that she kind of says, oh, thank you, blah, 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 blah. And the dad gets amorous while dressed as Santa. Yeah. And essentially, I think the movie wants to say that he is, performing oral sex on her, but he's not performing oral sex on her. He's crouched down in front of her still fully clothed nether regions. So she's wearing underwear. She's wearing undergarments. So her nether regions are clothed. He's about 6 inches away from her, vagina bits. And he is breathing. He's crotch breathing. That's we coined the term crotch breathing.
It's like he's trying to crack a safe.
Yeah. Right. Yes, it's like he's got his hands up on her legs. And he's sort of trying, and the funny thing about it is I don't know whether the director wanted just sort of a tableau, like just kind of generally be in the area to make it look like something's going on, right? But really, it's more about what the kid is feeling, or whether the director wanted like full blown cunnilingus, and the actors were just like, no, we're not going there, Even faking it, even with like plastic in between your mouth and the bits, which is what they would do in a professional movie. Right. Maybe the actors were not comfortable with that. And they were like, well, I'll just sort of hover here.
The decision behind whatever went into that, I'd really like to know the background, because it's definitely, this is the first scene. And I had no expectations for the movie. I go in and this is the first thing. I was like, oh man, I'm in for a ride now. But that definitely set the tone to so that's what disturbs him. That's like he sees this thing going on between him and what he perceives as Santa and his mom, and then But
it's a consensual thing.
It's totally consensual.
Yeah. It's so
for some reason it just disturbs him. Like he can't handle it. He goes upstairs and smashes a Christmas globe and cuts his hand or something like that. That's obviously the foundational. Despite the fact, to your point, Silent Night, Deadly Night is way more disturbing to anyone. This is who hasn't walked in on their parents? That happens from time to time. So that's what sets in motion his whole life.
Yes, he breaks the snow globe, doesn't he? And then pushes the glass from the snow globe into his hand.
He bleeds.
But it's also interesting as well, because he takes Santa later on in the movie. He takes the idea of Santa to be this moral arbiter. That's kind of what he uses Santa to be, right?
Yes.
And it's interesting that Santa apparently breaking that moral code to him as a child,
right,
would make him want to, rather than reject Santa, would actually make him want to almost become Santa and somehow get Santa back to the moral design that he sees the Christmas story as having, which is this idea of naughty and nice, right?
I agree with you, but there's another aspect of the movie where I think part of his thing is trying to recreate that scene. I think he in his mind, how he is going to be fulfilled sexually is to be Santa in someone's house, and then the mom comes down, and then he gets to do that. There's a point where in the movie where he starts delivering presents to houses, and there's that implication that he's this is part of what he's trying to do with his not just be the moral arbiter, but this is how he sees intimacy, or how he can achieve that.
He can only attain intimacy while dressed as Santa Claus.
Right, this is his that's the method by which he's going to be fulfilled in life, both with his personality, but also sexually, perhaps.
Well, it's also this fascinating take on the fact that he's a guy who doesn't fit in. He's bullied by everyone, abused by everyone. He's a middle-aged man by all accounts, or certainly a young middle-aged man. Never fit in. And he has this like poetic phrase he keeps using about like knowing the tune, but doesn't know how to play it and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And he finally learns what the tune is and how to play it and where his place is in the tune.
Yeah.
Which is a really poetic like turn of phrase to exist in this like bizarre B movie.
Yeah.
But essentially it talks to this idea that I think we can all relate to, which is this concept of, where do I belong in the grand scheme of things? And I think that you either spend your life fighting against all the inaccuracies and confusions of the world to try and make yourself fit. Like, I'm just gonna try and find a way for me to fit. The whole world doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to just try and you'll probably die very stressed out and unhappy doing that. And then there's other people that realize that you make yourself fit and that life is about either compromise or acceptance at a certain point, right? And so you have to compromise with some of the people you find there, whether it's at work, whether it's in relationships, whether it's in family. You have to accept a lot of what you find around you, even if it doesn't make logical sense, even if it seems to be something that is to detriment of humanity, because human nature will always go against its better interest for whatever reason. It just does.
Right.
And I think all of us as teenagers, if we have that kind of anarchic or creative spirit, will fight against the status quo for as long as we have energy. And then by the time we're middle-aged, we hope that we're slightly more, it doesn't mean that we won't maybe march for something we believe in or vote for something we believe in or whatever it is. But ultimately, we're not going to spend our whole day being like, I don't fit anywhere. We're just going to be like, well, actually, I'm just going to find the community where I do fit. And all other communities, go with love. Like, I don't necessarily need to be part of those communities, and I'll compromise there and I'll accept that and whatever, and go with love, be your own thing, do your own thing, right? He seems to be someone who has decided that he wants to fight against sort of society on all aspects, mainly because society has dealt him such a shitty hand repeatedly, but also that he wants to do that within the boundaries of Santa and Christmas. So at a time of year when humanity is getting together at Christmas parties and family gatherings and whatever, he doesn't really want any part in that. Not that, again, his work is encouraging him to be part of it, but even when he goes and his work boss is talking to him and introducing him to other people or whatever, he's more focused on, but why are we all here enjoying this punch? Why are we not helping children? You know what I mean? Like, he's like, the moral focus of Christmas should be helping children, which is wonderful. But because he's trying to bend communities that are not doing that to his will, instead of trying to ingratiate himself with the communities that are helping children. And even when he goes to like the orphanage or wherever he wants, or the hospital or wherever he's trying to hand out presents to the children, he's beset by this gatekeeper guard who's like this old wizened dude who's like 90. But even there, he's like, why can't I just give presents to the children? Like, why must there be all this, shit in the way of me doing what I feel is the right and proper thing? Right. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, totally. The other side, of course, is that he kind of combines the Santa narrative with like personal revenge. Like he exacts revenge on that. Like, I don't know if there's a point where he starts talking about his tune, just like you mentioned, like I can play the tune now. Like he says something like that to that effect. And then it starts to go off the rails for him. He's like, I thought I knew the tune and I didn't. No one wants to listen. And then that's where he kind of goes on this like kind of murderous, like he takes revenge on that guy who like makes him work his shift for him by like killing him in a very sloppy way in his house. He stabs a guy in front of a church. Like it seems like when the reality of being Santa didn't match with his imagination of it, that's where it got off the rails. Like it's a genuine, like we all go through crises in life. Like we don't go on murderous rampages, but like imagine your worldview being shattered to that degree. Like his investment in being Santa is so total, and to have it go so badly, like it's you're almost sympathetic to him, like in the movie, like he's the protagonist, but he's also the bad guy. Like he's the one causing the mayhem, and he's the one you're like invested in. You know what I mean?
Well, that's why Taxi Driver seems to be the best comparison. Because in Taxi Driver, we all understand where Travis Bickle is coming from. We all understand where Harry is coming from in Christmas Evil.
Right.
We all want to belong. We don't want to be bullied in our adulthood by our jerk salesman contemporaries who are just like, well, you know, blah, blah, blah. You go do your thing, and I'm just going to be over here being amazing and fuck you. You know, we don't want those guys. Those guys suck. Those Wall Street guys suck. Those corporate guys suck. We fucking hate them. They're awful people. Mm-hmm. And we also therefore can empathize and sympathize with that. And we all have something we love that we wish. The whole first half of this podcast, we were talking about the things that we love that we wish to some extent were more acknowledged by the outside world, right? For him, it's Christmas and being Santa, right? And he doesn't understand why. And when you're in that place and you're like, well, I don't understand why my friends and family won't share my music on Facebook, right? That's my frustration. Doesn't mean I'm going to go like, you know, stab them outside a church in midnight mass, but you understand the frustration, right? So the line that both Taxi Driver crosses and this movie crosses is the line that we in reality wouldn't cross. Right. And the line where we tend to then believe in this idea of what goes around comes around, in the sense that we try and tell ourselves that if you're a shitty person, don't worry, shitty things will come to you eventually. So if even though shitty people become billionaires and presidents all the time, we still say to ourselves like, right, but they're not happy. You know what I mean? They don't have what we have. We have happiness, or we have a home that we love, or you know, we can enjoy a sunset. You know, the one joke I said when Bezos, that fucking prick. Anyway, he keeps throwing rockets into the air, right? And you know, and big penis-shaped rockets. And the thing I always think every time he starts throwing his giant erections that are destroying the atmosphere and wasting natural resources up into the air to send celebrities around, you know, for 10 minutes and then bring it back down again. I know. I always think to myself, billionaires are so live in a world where everything is so readily available to them that the only way they can even touch joy is to literally build a space rocket that is shaped like their manhood and throw it into the air and have everyone look at them. Right. And that's the only way they could possibly even begin to become erect. They're so devoid of an existence that the only way that Jeff Bezos could even pleasure his wife for a minute would be having space rockets shaped like his dick flung into the atmosphere with William Shatner on it. You know what I mean? Oh my God, yeah. So the rest of us, though, you know, do newly formed dew on the grass, or a nice sunset, or, you know, a natural rock formation, or hanging out with our buddies in the backyard, having a cold one, or splashing around a swimming pool, or whatever it is. You name your relatively cheap, free, achievable, beautiful moment, and we're satisfied, we're happy. I don't have to. We can go through life. So I think that we all want Harry's thing to work out. We all want Travis Bickle to find that part of the world that doesn't suck and disgust him as much as New York does, right? We want him to go, well, why not? If you're so disgusted by what's happening in New York, just leave New York. Like, go find a smaller city or a nice country village or whatever it is, and find your happiness, man. Find your happiness. We all want Harry to go find his happiness. And he can't. And I think that's and the fact that while the world does celebrate Christmas, they're not celebrating Christmas in the somewhat kind of like we say, kind of moral, in a very puritanical way. He wants to celebrate Christmas in a very puritanical way. Good kids get toys, bad kids get coal or dirt, and everyone else, you know, that's how it should be. and everyone else should be helping children to achieve those things.
Right.
And that's not the way the world works. And he's upset and angered by that. But it is interesting that while there is some revenge aspect to his violence, actually the guys he kills in the church has nothing to do with anything. They just represent.
Yeah.
They just represent those like blue shirt, khaki pant, Wall Street twats. They just represent like that group of people.
Exactly.
So he murders them.
Yeah.
Who is the guy that he suffocates in bed? Is that co-worker?
So I watched it. I watching it again.
We couldn't figure it out the first time.
There's a couple of confusing parts because like a lot of people look really similar in the movie. But yeah, the guy who he kills with like a pillow in his bed, like he smothers him. That's his coworker that like made him work for him, like in the very first like factory scene.
That is him. Okay,
that's him. But that's the only like genuine like revenge thing he does.
Right.
He like goes after that kid. So then there's a scene where he hates this kid. That's like one of the kids is like he's like cutting out stuff from a penthouse. He's like obsessed with penthouse. This kid, and that's part of like I mentioned like the sexual aspect as well. Like he really hates this kid for like his like sexual expression, and then he like goes to his house and like puts like a face print and like does something really creepy and tries to grab him from a bush. So he does that shit, which is not cool. But again, it goes back to like your point of like his very black and white sense of justice about who's good and who's bad, and I am the arbiter. And if more people behaved like me and did the things that they should do, society would be better. Like there's a scene where he leaves the Christmas party. So like there's like a work Christmas party, and he leaves to go give gifts to these orphans or these kids at the hospital. And then he comes back and they see him as Santa, and they like congratulate him, bring him in, they give him a drink. They're like really celebrating him. And he like does this thing where he dances with kids and like everyone's loving it. And at the end, he's about ready to leave. And he goes, looks right at the children. He goes like, be good, listen to your parents, do what they tell you, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll bring you something for Christmas. But if you don't, I'll bring you something horrible. And it's like a really like the word, like everyone's having a great time. And then when he says horrible, it's like, oh, it's just got real like dark. You know what I mean? Like he's got this.
It's the best scene in the movie to some extent because it really exemplifies, there's that moment where he starts to fit in. Like you say, he's dressed as Santa. Everyone's cheering him and dancing and loving him and everything like that. And instead of just going home and being like, wow, I found my moment, I had my moment, he has to enforce, he has to become, like I say, this moral arbiter in front of everyone. And the moment, it's so funny, like he's talking and you feel the audience at that moment in that room go from, oh, Santa, bringing the kids, blah, 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 to being like, wait, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah. And they're like,
this guy's
so no one's having fun now. And then he does like a big belly laugh and everyone's like, oh, ho, ho, ho. Like, but then right after that scene is when he kills the guy in front of the church. And that starts off the whole, descent where he can't.
It's like the scene in Taxi Driver when the political candidate gets in the back of the car. Yeah. The guy that he's been following this whole time. Mm-hmm. And he starts off like, I've learned more. The political candidate says something along the lines of like, I've learned more about America by traveling in cabs than I have in, all the rallies in or whatever. Yeah. And he's like, Travis, what if you were me, what would you change? And he's looking for that like salt of the earth, blue collar wisdom, whatever it is. Yeah. And Travis goes from, I would start by cleaning up the city and to being like, it's fucking filth and putrid. Like he starts to scare the dude in the back of the car. He goes from like, if you as an observer could just stop him at a certain point and just be like, that was good, dude. Like, just leave it there.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
but he has to push it further. Yeah.
Before that part, I mean, if the movie ended there, I mean, it would almost be like a Disney movie. Like, I mean, he's a little more disturbed than he should be to be like a true, like, but like if it ended that point, it was like, okay, well, the guy did what he wanted to do and he made some children happy. But then, the movie, like life, shows you that not everything's as, cut and dried and easy as it may seem,
Yeah. And so he has this sort of lonely night of the soul, goes out dressed as Santa, kills a bunch of people, and then on Christmas morning, he kills Frank in his house.
Yeah.
And then on Christmas morning, he breaks all the toys on the assembly line in his factory. Like, where does he wake up? Does he wake up in an alleyway? Am I remembering that right? Is he in garbage and stuff?
Yeah, he somehow ends up really dirty. I forget how. Is it? Oh, because
he breaks into Frank's home and then he kind of runs out. But that's not when he's chased, though. That he's chased later on, right?
He's chased later. That's after he gets the knife pulled on him.
Right.
He's in an alley. And there's like some children that run up to him, and the parents recognize him from because he's all over the news as having killed someone dressed as Santa, and they're like, "That's him." One of the parents pulls a knife, and then he takes the knife. Oh no, the kid takes the knife from the parent and gives it to Harry.
Back to Santa. Yeah.
And then Harry shanks him and then runs off, and then they get their torches.
Yeah, well, this was amazing that an urban present day group of people living in a city suddenly find burning torches out of nowhere.
And 2 dozen of them. I didn't.
Hundreds of them.
If you're Dave, get your torch. We got to catch this guy. Be like, okay, I got a broom, and I wouldn't know what to construct a torch with, but they had them. They're ready to go. Then they chase him. He falls a bunch, and then that's how he ends up back at. The
pratfalls in this movie. I mean, one of the best bits is when he breaks into someone's house, and he's really stealthy and quiet about breaking in. Yeah. But he's got this big sack of presents. Yeah. And the moment he goes to move into the kitchen, I was in fits of laughter and in tears of laughter because every time you thought he's going to succeed at something, he would bang his sack into something, he'd trip over something. When he's being chased, he turns the corner and does the most amazing pratfall into a big bundle of garbage. He's so, uncoordinated and it's so well done that part of your heart goes out to him and the other part of you just gut laughs. Yeah. When he was trying to get into that house and he'd been so quiet and so stealthy, it's like a Warner Brothers cartoon when it's like a Tom and Jerry cartoon or Warner Brothers cartoon where the big bulldog breaks into the house to try and get Tom, and then Tom set up a series of rakes or something and it hits him in the face. It was like that. He'd broken into the house, it was all stealthy, he'd figured it out, gets to the kitchen door, bang, everything just trying to get the sack of presents through the kitchen door creates a whole thing. When he gets upstairs trying to murder Frank with the sack of presents, the most cumbersome and elongated suffocation scene ever. His wife is bouncing up and down next to him, fast asleep, snoring the whole thing. Yeah. It's phenomenal. And then, like you say, in the last act, the torches come out and people are chasing him on foot. Yeah. And during this chase, it's the end of Frankenstein's monster or something. Right, yeah. And then during this chase, he has the time to drive to his brother's house, get into a fracas with his brother, where he fights and punches and gets all crazy with his brother. Drive off again in the van, and the tiki torch guys are still chasing him. They're still running, 15, 20 of them with their torches. Yeah. That was amazing.
Yeah, that scene with his brother is great. So his brother chokes him out, thinks he kills him, and then puts him in his car inexplicably. He drags him out and puts him in his own car. And there's this great moment where he thinks he's dead. He wakes up and he clenches his fist and then punches his brother outside the window.
Yes,
that was one of my favorite scenes. I just got a big laugh at that.
The physical comedy of his brother killing him and then realizing, oh shit, I got to get rid of the butt. It was so, and it's almost like the last moment in the movie where you realize that, everyone in this world is doomed. The brother is also a fucking asshole. Yeah. And while I'll never side with Harry because of what he ends up doing, I'd rather hang with Harry than the brother. The brother seems like a wound up, tense, stressful. piece of shit.
Yeah, he's like the opposite of, and like in the movie, his kids love Harry. Like they keep saying, like, "Where's Uncle Harry? When's Uncle Harry getting here?" His wife loves Uncle Harry. She keeps telling her husband, like, "Don't pick on Harry this year. Like, take it easy on him." He does everything the opposite way how Harry would do with his own family.
The brother inherited the family home. Yeah. Like the brother has this big house and everything like that. Harry's living in this like shitty little apartment with all his Christmas knickknacks. And then, Harry shows up at the house and his brother just flat out strangles him, like thinks he's killed him. Just fucking kills him.
At this point,
bundles him into the car.
Yep.
And then Harry wakes up, punches him out. They get back in his van. And then as he's driving out in the van, the torch people come running around the corner. And that was, I was in so much happiness with that. And then the end of the movie, I mean, it is just so poetically amazing.
Yeah.
Is that they're chasing Harry with their torches. He's in this van. The van is, on its last legs, to be fair. And he drives off. And the van, as he drives off, he's being chased. The van hits like a snowdrift, is it, off a bridge or something?
It goes off a bridge, yeah.
It goes off a bridge. The hits a snowdrift. The van goes off a bridge and flies through the air past the moon as a voiceover reads "The Night Before Christmas," and that's how the movie ends.
Yeah,
and to me, I find that so lovely. Like I just find that so lovely because it is a world, and it's funny how many Christmas movies do this, considering, it's never a Christmas movie in which everyone is super lovely to everyone, but there's this one psychopath killing people. It's always a movie in which, while you and I would never become the psychopath, everybody the psychopath comes across is either transgressive, so they're either like having sex or doing something that's transgressive, which is not a bad thing in our world, but I mean in their world, or the people they come across are just pieces of filth, like just utter shitheels who in this movie world deserve an axe to the face or deserve a punch to the neck or whatever it is. So it's interesting that so many Christmas movies, especially Christmas horror movies, are very cynical.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And there's so much to be like, Christmas is like, it's one of those things that it's easy to be cynical about. Like if you're, there's the idea of the Christmas spirit, right? You're just your point that you made earlier in our conversation. This is a time when people do the right thing more often, or help people more often, or do things like there's that. But then people see that it's just a money making holiday, or if it's just a chance for people to get presents, or there's all sorts of ways to be cynical about it. So it's an easy target in a lot of ways. So I think that's why it's used a lot in horror movies to like create that, because they all have this very, to your point, like cynical approach. I think Christmas helps with that. I don't know why.
It was a point in my life when I realized that showing love, openly showing love, and being very positive about experiences didn't have to be this like negative thing. And I know that sounds ridiculous because some people are like, what are you talking about? Showing love is wonderful. Show love all the time. But we're so raised to believe that you're wet if you show any weakness, if you show any sensitivity, if you show any love, if you show any emotion, then you are wet and weak and wrong. And therefore, something like Christmas, which is all about showing all the fucking emotion you possibly can, whether it's with family or friends, or loving the sight of lights and candy canes and all the rest of it. You can be cynical about that. You can be cynical about the world all day as long. If you can't like see the joy on a child's face when they get a Christmas present and feel something, there's something wrong with you, not something like wrong with Christmas.
Right. Yeah.
So, I was the angry young man, gruff cynical, sarcastic British teenager dude well into my 20s who was just like, fuck everything and everything sucks and blah, 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 blah.
Same, yeah.
It took becoming an adult, wearing my heart on my sleeve and being as open as I possibly can to learn that there's true strength in love. There's more weakness in hate.
Oh, absolutely.
Which again, the moment I say that sentence, there's people listening to this podcast right now. It's like, oh, fucking hippie. You know what I mean? Like, fucking weak hippie. And I'm like,
yeah, I completely agree. Like, the last few years of my life, like I tell my friends I love them all the time. Like, it's not like it's something that, to your point, when you're growing up, it's like, oh, who would do that? You must be a wimp or something like that. But like, life's short. You got to cherish the people around you and, tell them how much they matter to you. That's important to do, especially.
I 100% agree. But no, to wrap up then on Christmas Evil, like, and going back to what you're saying, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? If you get older and you get better with yourself and happier with yourself and generally happier with your surroundings, kind of showing love and being more positive is actually, it's actually the source of strength and joy and whatever in the thing. And you kind of wish Harry felt that in a way. Do we think that the ending of the movie is the filmmaker trying to give Harry that? Or is it some dark, twisted thing of saying there can only be happiness in death for this guy? Like, I don't know. Like, what is the ending saying? Or is it just well, fuck it, we don't know how to end this. Let's just have him fly off to the moon and actually become Santa.
I'm tempted to pick the second option, that it's a statement about how, as much as he tried, he couldn't make it work. Like he couldn't succeed in, making the world the better place that he wanted it to be. And in the end, they just turned on him like Frankenstein's monster and drove him over a bridge. But I don't know if that fits with the tone of the rest of the movie. Like, I guess I'm tempted to pick option 2, but I think it's probably option 3, which is like, shit, how do we end this movie? Let's have him drive off a bridge. I'm going to believe in my heart that it's a cynical statement about there's no way to achieve his goal or whatever. That's one.
Yeah, there's no answer to this, so let's just have him fly past the moon and achieve in death he achieves his goal or something. Right,
yeah. I mean, he's definitely being chased for a reason at this point. It's not like he's blameless in the fact that he's being pursued by a torch-bearing mob. So it's kind of it's hard to decide what the movie's saying with that. But it definitely, the way it ends is great. I like that and the van is painted with like Santa's sleigh on the side. So it's like, as he's going off, just like you said, it's like, flying off into the distance, it just kind of floats away.
So apparently when exploitation audiences saw this in 42nd Street, they started throwing shit at the screen because they were so upset that the movie had like a quasi-happy ending or a sort of a goofy ending or like a kind of jokey ending. Because I think they wanted it to have either the angry torch mob, kill him, or to have him somehow murder them and escape or something. Okay. You know what I mean? But instead, there's a wonderful commentary. I haven't seen it yet on the Blu-ray, but there's an article all about it because John Waters, the famous kind of B-movie schlockmeister from Baltimore, is a huge fan of this movie. Like, it's his favorite movie. He screens it apparently for his friends all the time. And he also sees this as an allegory for like a man confused with cross-dressing. Yeah. He actually sees it as like a story about what used to be called cross-dressing or transvesticism, but someone who's confused with their sort of a gender assignment. And I can see that. I mean, I think you can read into, like I did, like anything that someone loves that is essentially taken from them by the bullies of the world or attacked by the bullies of the world. You can sort of read into this movie any kind of allegory for that. And it's funny because to paint the normies, quote unquote normies, as sort of an angry torch wielding mob, especially in this day and age where there's seemingly angry torch wielding mobs on both sides. One is trying to tell us what we can and can't put in movies, for example, and how people should be represented. And the other one is just telling us that they don't want their guns taken away or their religion taken away or whatever. Everyone's angry about something, it seems. But the painting the normies as the torch-wielding mob and making the statement that really there's only a handful of people in the movie that actually like and trust this guy, and most of them are children, I think is that's a really fascinating message. Yeah. Because I'm not, like I say, I've ceased to be cynical about a lot of stuff in my life. I'm still very, very cynical about humanity. So it definitely falls into my viewpoint on humans. Yeah,
it's definitely got that misanthropic vibe, like that, and that's kind of why I'm tempted to see that ending is like a statement about humanity. Like there's no joy but in death or whatever. Like that seems like that darker feel. Maybe that's what I want to believe that ending means, I guess.
Here's a slightly better way of looking at it. Fuck reality, escape into fantasy. That's another way.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, it's overall the experience is really. It was just great to see a movie that took I said this at the beginning. I expected it to be jokey and lame and B movie in like a B movie way, whatever that means. But it's clear they tried, and Harry's killing it acting. He's there's some scenes in there where he's it's really believable. He's doing a good job conveying what he's trying to convey on screen.
So the director said in the commentary, apparently, that this movie that we've talked very seriously about, while also laughing at some of it, apparently in 1970, he smoked a joint, saw an image of Santa Claus with a knife in his hand, and then built the whole story around that. Which is, I get that. There is too much in the movie that is directly taken from other films, most obviously Taxi Driver. For example, in Taxi Driver, at the end, the famous ending of Taxi Driver, he guns down all the people in the brothel, the pimp and the guy working the door and whatever, and he shoots about 5 or 6 people. And at the very end with Bernard Herrmann's brooding sax-driven score, there is an overhead shot of the camera panning across the carnage in sort of this weird alien slow motion. And in Christmas Evil, when he kills the people coming out of midnight mass, there is an homage to that, which is they're lying at the bottom of the steps, and there's that overhead shot with a sort of droney music on the soundtrack, that kind of it's like the overhead camera, and that's directly taken from Taxi Driver. Right. So, but yeah, it's interesting because again, I will say, and we had a long conversation about slasher movies after we watched Black Christmas. Yeah. I will say again that, between the mid-70s and the mid-80s, when slashers and horror in general and independent movies in general were at their zenith in America, the horror genre has a ton of stuff to say and should never just be considered as a throwaway genre. Right.
Yeah, even if it's, even if that shit, the story about him smoking a joint, and even if that's the genesis of the idea, just because that's the genesis idea doesn't mean that that's all that it is. To my album, for example, it's whatever the genesis idea is. I just liked Manowar and Hatebreed, and I thought they would be fun to stuff together into a genre. It evolved from there into to much more, hopefully. But
that's the thing, is that I think a lot of people starting out, and I don't know whether this was this guy's first movie or not. I'll have to look it up. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Yeah. But a lot of people, when they're kind of branching out into their own creativity, and there's all the insecurity that is tied up in that, it can often be seen as this was not his first movie. This was actually his last movie. Oh. He hasn't made a movie since then.
Whoa.
So he made The Deviates, The Transformation, A Sandwich of Nightmares, and then Christmas Evil.
Wow.
Let me just look at The Deviates and A Sandwich of Nightmares.
A Sandwich of Nightmares sounds great.
Yeah, it sounds incredible. I just don't know if it's a feature or a short.
Oh, okay.
This film has... So that's fascinating. So The Transformation, A Sandwich of Nightmares, which is a full-length movie, has not been seen since its theatrical run.
Whoa.
And is thought to be lost.
Damn.
Thought to be completely lost. And that's from 1974. And then The Deviates from 1970 appears to be... I mean, there's literally zero information about it. So,
wow.
Meaning there's not even a running time or anything.
Right,
All it just says is director, writer. There's not even a cast list for that movie or a storyline or anything. So The Deviates may have just been something he made that never went anywhere.
Right.
The Transformation, A Sandwich of Nightmares, came out but got lost.
Lost? How do you lose a whole movie?
I don't know. It depends how it was distributed.
Is it just sitting in like a box somewhere? Like all the materials are just... That kind of reminds me of like Manos Hands of Fate. Like they just like found all the original like materials like in a warehouse somewhere.
Yeah. Well, that just happened with New York Ninja. That was put out by Vinegar Syndrome. A guy was working at Vinegar Syndrome doing some, I think, editing or something. And he was, cataloging. That was it. And Vinegar Syndrome, or Blu-ray distributors like Vinegar Syndrome, tend to buy up collections. So someone says, either a studio says, we're getting rid of 150 film canisters from 1970 through to 1985 or whatever for this amount of money. And someone goes, fine, we'll buy that. Or a private collector is like, I'm giving away 60 film canisters or whatever for this much. But people tend to buy collections. They don't tend to go... It's rare that someone has the clout in the Blu-ray industry to be able to be like, we want to put out this specific title. We're just going to go spend all our money and time looking for this one title. Yeah. They tend to buy a whole bunch of shit and then find like the one great title that's in there and go, this will be the title that pays for all this other stuff. You know what I mean?
It's more fun that way too, I imagine.
So they bought all these canisters and there were about 5 canisters labeled New York Ninja, but nothing else was known about the film. Mm-hmm. And over 3 years working there at Vinegar Syndrome, he said, like, do you mind if I digitize some of this footage and start looking at it and da-da-da-da-da? Turns out that it's this ninja movie that was made in New York in the 80s, totally lost. No one had ever seen it before. They don't even think it had ever been completed. It's all just rough footage. It wasn't edited together or anything like that. And it had no sound. There was no audio sync up with the movie. Yeah. So they do all their research, try and find out like who was in it and who, try and get stories and find out what the script was meant to be and so on and so forth. Yeah. They end up reconstructing the movie piece by piece in the best way possible, in the way that only it will make sense. Oh, man. They get a cast of all the B-movie guys that they've worked with to do voiceover on the movie. So they get like Cynthia Rothrock and Don the Dragon Wilson and people like that to do voiceover on the movie. Wow. They get a local synth pop band to do an 80s sounding synth rock score. Right. So they get a full score put together for the movie. They edit it all together, put the voiceover, do the whole thing, reconstruct the film, blah, 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 and then put it out for both a theatrical release in like little art house cinemas and on like a special Blu-ray edition. Wow. And it's one of those where that could have either really worked or really sucked. And it was one of those where I bought the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray just thinking like, well, I've got to see it. Yeah. Like I've got to just see what this comes. Yeah. And it surprisingly works. Wow. Incredibly well.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So considering how bad most 80s ninja films are, this one had a lot of like fun entertainment wackiness to it.
I love stuff like that. It's just, and that's part of what I love about like underground stuff, like where you just discover something and you put all your efforts into realizing this thing, and then just like imagining what happened with the original movie, why they never put it together, like where in the process did they decide like, fuck it, I'm not going to even finish it, or like, that's fascinating. It's almost like finding like a time capsule, or like, finding, that's amazing. I'd have to check it out just from the story you told me. That's awesome.
It's great. No, it really is fantastic. And hopefully it'll wind up streaming someday, because Vinegar Syndrome do make their stuff available sometimes on like Amazon or Shudder or whatever, limited. But I think they want to, because this is the first one that they've like put out that, although they didn't film, it's the first one they put together. Like they're not just releasing a movie that existed. Yeah. I think they want to push it into all the physical avenues they can before they put it out on streaming. But
so cool.
But yeah, it's a fascinating story. But yeah, so is Christmas Evil. Like, it's the only movie available out there by this director. Wow. And he never directed or wrote anything since that. Certainly, IMDb has any information on. I mean, he still chugs away and does his own thing in his own world. Yeah. But one day I'll pick up the Blu-ray and I'll kind of find out more information, I'm sure, because there's loads of extras and stuff on it. But yeah, it's just an absolutely fascinating film. I love it. It's going to go into my regular Christmas watch.
Oh, for sure. What are your major, like, I should ask, what are your like 3 Christmas, like Brent and I, we have like 3 Christmas movies we watch every year. This might be the 4th one. Do you have like a rotation that you do every year on a tradition?
I have to do Muppets Christmas Carol.
Oh yeah, I love Muppets Christmas Carol.
I have to do that one. Kim and I tend to do Elf, which is sort of one of Kim's favorite movies. It was one that kind of got her to love Will Ferrell. But it wasn't one of mine before I met Kim. Silent Night, Deadly Night, I'll normally put on at some point over Christmas. I really love the 2 new Kurt Russell Christmas Chronicles on Netflix.
Oh, I haven't seen those.
They're like, in any other world, they are forgettable Hallmark movies that no one gives a shit about. With Kurt Russell as Santa and the way he plays the role, it literally elevates them to 2 of the most fun.
That's awesome.
Like ridiculous, very childish. Yeah. Like they're very family friendly, very childish, but it's Kurt Russell. And there's so much love for Kurt Russell. There's just so much from, our generation, especially like anyone who grew up with Snake Plissken or Big Trouble in Little China or, Breakdown or any of those movies. There's just such love for Kurt Russell anyway, that having him play this like Santa full of bravado and braggadocio and, this enormous beard and everything. Like, he's just so good in it that you can't help but love it. So I will probably watch Christmas Chronicles every year, Silent Night, Deadly Night every year, Christmas Evil every year, A Muppets Christmas Carol. Weirdly, I don't put Gremlins in every year. It's not like my favorite of the Joe Dantes. I like it, but I don't put it in every year. Yeah. It's sort of a special year that I put Gremlins in. Die Hard, which I know is now predictable because everyone talks about it. But I was watching Die Hard as a Christmas movie a decade before the whole, like, is Die Hard a Christmas movie came about. I hate having to say that, but I have to keep defending myself as not like a bandwagon jumper. I built the bandwagon. I didn't fucking jump on it. I don't think people realize that I'm like 42 and I was around when this shit first came out. And sometimes I like to do, because Die Hard does get irritating online, I like to do Die Hard 2 because it's also a Christmas movie and it has my buddy William Sadler as the main villain in it. And I think Die Hard 2 is, it's not as iconic, but it's as good. I mean, it's got all the action, it's got all the shouting, it's got a great villain. They kill an entire plane load of British people in that movie. Like, they literally They crash a British jetliner in that movie.
Damn.
Colm Meaney. He's also in Con Air. Colm Meaney plays the British Airways, and it's so funny because normally you've heard Colm Meaney like talk like an Irish guy, like he's got this like gruff Irish accent. Even in Con Air, like he's got this like gruff Irish accent, and in Die Hard 2, he's trying to do like the British accent, like British Airways plane 457 coming in for land, what, pip, pip. And it's funny hearing Colm Meaney trying to do this accent.
Yeah. I haven't seen Die Hard 2 in ages. I'll check it out.
Oh, it's so good. But no, I don't have any Christmas movies that people would be like, oh, that's a surprise or that's a weird one.
Yeah, no, I mean, me too. A minor Christmas Vacation, the John Hughes.
Yeah, of course. Christmas Vacation. Yes, of course. Why did I forget that? Yes, it's fucking amazing.
Home Alone. And
we've watched it 3 times this year already.
Christmas Vacation?
Yes.
Yeah. That one's, it's good for almost any season, but I love to watch it. I have a Tom and Jerry and I watch Christmas Vacation. Home Alone, and then Scrooged with Bill Murray. Those are my top 3.
Scrooged is another great one. Again, not one that I watch every year, but it's certainly one of my favorite Bill Murray performances. And it's funny, like you get to a point where you love that there are, Stripes, Ghostbusters, Scrooged, Groundhog Day, whatever that like 80s, early 90s quintessential Bill Murray comedies.
Yeah.
You love that they exist. Mm-hmm. And you also love that like the Wes Anderson era Bill Murray thing exists. You just wish there were more like Bill Murray 80s comedies. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's only like a handful.
Yeah.
And once you get to 42 and you've watched all of them like 17 times, it kind of, you kind of go, which is why I don't put Scrooge in every year, because I think I get the feeling that I've watched it a lot, but I love it. I love it. It's one of his upper echelon comedic performances.
Yeah.
I do love it.
Something about Christmas movies, it's like, I don't know, just I weave them into the tradition of the, like, they're like setting up the tree or having candy canes, or like, there's just like, I know that I've seen it a billion times. I know I can do all the lines, but just it's part of the window dressing of the season. It feels obligatory. And I always enjoy it every time.
The line that me and my university friends who I talked about earlier, the line that we always do from Scrooged is, "Will you stop with the goddamn hammer?" I don't know why, but that always like sticks out in our head.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, and then when he's like, go on, do Richard Burton, and he just goes, I don't know, like he just like does this like really weird voice. And they're all just like, like all the bums in the thing. And I love that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Bill Murray with long hair in the flashback sequences is always a bit of a joy.
Yeah.
With his like thinning mullet and his long flowing hair. But I love that movie. But no, Christmas Evil.
Christmas Evil up there now.
It's on the list, man. It's on the list. I love it. It has everything I love about movies. And it's one of those things where you just kind of, well, this is where I was going when I tried to find out if it was his first time.
Yeah.
And this, I'll make this point and then we can wrap it up. But a lot of people get insecure about when they're creating art about whether they will be seen as derivative, right? Because they worry because there's a lot of influences in their head. They're like, oh, I really like this or I really like that, and I kind of want to steal this and I kind of want to steal that and whatever. And they worry that they'll be seen as derivative or what they're doing is derivative. Truth of the matter is everyone does that. Absolutely everyone. And it takes honesty when you're writing to imbue whatever you're doing with yourself so that when people see it, when outsiders see it, when someone who's not attached to it see it, they're going to see you more than they're going to see the influences. Mm-hmm. You might listen to, like, if you listen to some of my earlier music that I did many years ago, you'll go, oh, this guy likes Tom Waits, because every song I'm trying to do in the Tom Waits like voice. Mm-hmm. I stopped that at a certain point, but I had to go through that to find my own voice.
Yeah.
By doing that, I found the ability to modulate my voice and do some rough, some rock and roll, some blues, some soul, some straight, whatever. I found my voice, right? Mm-hmm. And even though you might say, oh, this is derivative of Dylan or derivative of Tom Waits or derivative of Mountain Goats or whatever, and while you might be able to notice those influences, when you listen to my songs, because I wrote them and because I'm honest when I write them, they sound like my songs. You might be able to go, oh, I hear a bit of John Darnielle in there, or I hear whatever. But like, ultimately, they sound like me, probably to the point where people are like, I don't like that they sound like John, but that's fine. They sound like me. Same with first-time filmmakers. Very often, first-time films are more interesting because they tend to be the one where, you've not yet been picked up by a studio. You've not been overly influenced by anything. Maybe you're working with your own budget, or even if you have got budget from a studio, they're not looking at it because it's not that big a budget. And you tend to put more of yourself in it. Right. It's very odd that a filmmaker gets to make 10 movies, and by the 10th movie, there's still much of them in it. It doesn't mean it's not like Scorsese's 10th movie looks like a Scorsese movie, but it probably doesn't have as much of Scorsese the man in it as like his 2 early films will have. Right. Yeah. And that's what I love about this is Christmas Evil to me feels like someone going, well, if this is the only movie I ever make, I'm putting in not only the things I'm influenced by, Taxi Driver and other stuff, right, but my opinions on humanity, some fantasy sequences, a look at some dark sexuality, whatever it is. Like, it just feels like a guy being like, this is all the shit that's floating around my head right now. I'm going to put it out into the world, and that's what it is. Absolutely. And then you might, over years, hone your craft and change your voice and whatever, and it'll still intrinsically sound like you. But the first thing is always the most interesting thing. So, I feel like that's Christmas Evil, even though he went ahead and made a movie before this. Yeah, no, I agree. It definitely has that organic feel that you want to feel people's expression, and that you definitely feel that. Well, no one 10 years into a career would make this movie. No. The way he made that movie. Yeah. You would, someone would come along with studio notes and say, don't do this, don't do that, make this prettier. It's a very ugly movie in the sense of like where he inhabits. Yes. And other people would be like, no, let's get a set decorator in here to make this look more like, it could look ugly, but it needs to look beautifully ugly. You know what I mean? In this movie, they just stuck stuff on the walls and littered his apartment with stuff in a way where you're like, that feels more real to me. Yeah. Yeah. And you wouldn't have just endless shots of him like humming and grabbing his face. You would want other expressions of pain and anguish. Yeah. Whereas this feels like it has more poetry to it in a weird way. Yeah, I agree. So, Dave, thank you ever so much for being a guest on the Christmas episode of the After Movie Diner. This has been an absolute joy. As soon as you have links to where your album will be and stuff, give them to me and I'll put them on the website and I'll advertise them on the website. Where can people find stuff now? You have a Facebook page. What's the URL and stuff? Yeah. So it's facebook.com/Pillaging Villagers. So if you follow us on there, I'm going to put out singles every 2-3 weeks or something like that. Just leading up to the album release in March. And then you can find us on Bandcamp, Pillaging Villagers, and YouTube, Pillaging Villagers. So right now there's just one track, but I'll release more. So yeah. Nice. So everyone go listen to that one track until the next track comes out next week. But thank you ever so much, Dave, for doing this. We will definitely do this again in the new year sometime. And I think like 1 in every 4 of our movie nights, we should just go, let's talk about that movie. Like whatever movie jumps out to us, let's do that and do one of these. But this has been great, dude. Love chatting with you. Have a very Merry Christmas. We'll speak to you tomorrow night, though, because we're going to do our movie night tomorrow night. But have a very Merry Christmas publicly. And we'll speak to you soon, dude. All right, you too. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
Yes. We've come to the end of the show. That wasn't so bad, was it? You can move forward now with the confidence that you are a survivor. To play us out, here's some new music by
Pillaging Villagers,
which you can find on Bandcamp. Good night.